Hey, hi, Joe.
Good evening.
Utility District. Shauna, could we get roll call, please?
Thank you. Director Aguirre?
Here.
Director Bender?
Here.
Director Harris?
Here.
Vice President Laliotis?
Here.
President Finn?
Here.
Thank you.
Sounds like Joe's doorbell's going off.
I don't think it's fine. Is it?
No, it's your clock, Joe.
The clock, yeah.
Okay. Well, with
That's
that,
6 o'clock.
it's because it's 6 o'clock. Yeah. Perfect. We're going to defer the pledge this evening. Brian, do we have any changes to the agenda from your side?
President Finn, I do have one minor edit to recognize in the consent calendar, item number 13. In the consent calendar, in the agenda packet, it indicates an approval amount not to exceed $80,000. In the staff report is correct. That amount is $75,000. So the recommendation, as stated in the staff report, is to approve approval not to exceed $75,000.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And I also have a change to the agenda that I would like to add as a closed session item pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, Public Employment General Manager. So we're going to add another closed session item to tonight's closed session. Okay? Great. Thank you. Which brings us to number 5, public comment. This is time that is set aside for the public to comment on any item and to address the board on any matter not on the agenda. Testimony related to any agendized matter should be addressed to the public at the time, or should be addressed to us at the time that that item is considered. So is there any public comment tonight? Shauna?
No, Madam President.
Very good. Thank you. Which leads us into item number 6, director's update. So this is the time for the directors to comment on any item within the purview of the district, but that's not on the agenda. Do any of my directors have a comment? And you can simply raise your hand and I will recognize you. Director Harris, please.
Hi. You know, I always like to comment during this time. I got to say that I noticed that the outages button was deleted somehow off of the website, but I did see today that it's back on and that people do have a resource in case there is an outage. So I do appreciate that that got back up and running. The other thing I also liked is that in the PDFs when reviewing the board packages, I got to say that the new PDFs are much easier to navigate the document. So I appreciate that change and whatever happened there. I also did notice that 5 pages were added to the agenda packet. And I think it looked like one of the staff reports was missing from one of Joe's presentations. So just wanted to point that out. And then I also want to just shout out to the employees and for all the hard work that they do. I know that they are constantly working hard and trying to be patient with COVID and everything. So I just appreciate that. And this week, I also attended another task force meeting. And it's always good to see the community leaders involved in this process. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Harris. Before we go any further, I just got a text from Steve Gross that his Zoom isn't working, but he needs to be unmuted somehow because he informed me that we need to vote on adding my item to the agenda. So we have to, I'm going to backtrack a little bit and we'll call for a vote on that and see if we can't get Steve Gross's technical difficulties addressed.
Madam President, we'll unmute Steve Gross. Regina,
Thank-
that is the phone number that is in the attendees.
Oh, there he is. Or at least there's his phone. And it's unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm having difficulties. I was on a Zoom call earlier today and everything was just fine. In order to add an item to the agenda, as requested by President Finn, we have to make a finding that the item came to the attention of the board after the agenda was posted and that there's a need to take immediate action, which I understand those facts are present. This has to do with the general manager search and facts that President Finn discovered after the agenda was posted, and there's a need to take action on this item before the next regular meeting. That would justify adding this. And if the board would like to add the item that President Finn described, then you would need to make a motion to add it to the agenda, have a second, call for public input, and then vote, and 2/3 of the board would have to approve adding it.
Got it. Okay. So do I have a motion to add this item to the agenda tonight?
So moved. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Director Bender. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Can we get a vote, please?
Thank you. Director Aguirre,
Yes.
Director Bender,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis.
Yes, but don't forget about public input.
Oh, gosh, thank you. Thank you, Director Leotis. I'm going to pause it real quick before we take that final vote. Do we have any public input on this item?
No, Madam President.
Thank you very much. And last,
And President Finn.
yes.
Donna, your volume needs to go up a little.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you all for helping through our procedural challenges. Okay, so we had, yes? Is there? Okay, we had Director Harris's director's comment. Do we have any other directors that would like to comment on something this evening? I see Vice President Laliotis.
Yeah, just I also attended the task force meeting, and not only do I want to thank the rest of the community members, but I think staff is really doing a great job of facilitating those meetings, taking copious notes, keeping the group focused, and really getting our money's worth out of the time we have in those meetings. So I do want to recognize staff for their hard work in these task force meetings and strategic plan overall.
Thank you so much, Director Laliotis. Do we have any other directors that would like to comment this evening?
My task force meeting's tomorrow morning, so thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone. See ya.
Thanks, Jeff. Director Aguirre, do you have anything you would like to comment on?
I have nothing. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you so much.
President.
Very good. And I have just a very quick comment as well. First of all, I echo both Director Harris and Director Laliotis's comments about our task forces. They've been really very productive, I think. And also, I just returned from a little mini vacation, a 2-day jaunt into the backcountry where we had opportunity to hike and to ski and to melt snow for our water and to see like all of the stars and the big giant trees. And it just really reinforced upon me, that's what I love the most. I love just being out and away from the peopled world and into the unpeopled world. And it was a reminder about my service on this board. And to me, serving on this board and this district and for this community is it's a real act of love because of what we do here. What we do here ensures that this big, beautiful, wild world, including our little community of Truckee within it, is safe with clean water to drink and air to breathe and thriving communities within it. And I'm just so grateful to be here. And I want you all to know how grateful I am for the work that you do and the skill with which you do it. I'm just honored to be a member of this community. So thank you very much. That is my comment for tonight. Which brings us to the general manager's update. Brian, do you have?
Yeah, thank you, President Finn. I have a few short ones that, in the interest of time, we have a pretty heavy agenda this evening. We did commit to the board to bring back updates on the billing relief program we have in place in this program predated COVID, but the board approved additional funding, additional measures in response to COVID, the hardships economically here in town. To date, since the program began back in April of last year, there has been a little over 300 ratepayers who have taken the opportunity of the benefits of this program, with a total distribution of about $98,000. So that's a good benefit to the community. It's being utilized. We saw an initial surge of users and that kind of dwindled off, but it's still being utilized. We're still proactively making sure that the community is aware of it and that those who are in need of it utilize it. With that same, in that same kind of topic, the number of accounts past due still continue to be a concern for the district. The current dollar value of that total accounts past due is just over $400,000. The good news is it looks like the 30-day past dues have dropped slightly since the previous month, but we still continue to see increases in the 60 and 90-day, and that's where the concern is for the district. And so that 60-day plus delinquency is now approaching $250,000. So that's something staff will continue to update the board on and continually to proactively make connections with the community on how we can resolve those with either payment programs or assistance of some form or fashion. So we'll continue to update on that and keep you abreast of the progress on it. A couple other updates in terms of water. We have seen in the last 3 months, this first quarter of 2021, a slight increase in water usage year over year from 2020. It's been around 5% average per month. Because of the time of year, this is a winter season, that it's likely we would be confident in attributing this to indoor use because there isn't any outdoor irrigation going on at the time. So that can be, interpreted as additional occupancy or additional use indoors. It's not a grave concern for the district at the moment. One of the things we do need to continue to keep in touch with and keep our analytics going is in terms of water usage versus water production, and begin to shape our plan for meeting water loss compliance moving forward. The state has, despite all of the hard work, our own Stephen Poncelet and other advocates we have through our JPAs and other agencies to really help the state arrive at a fair and equitable regulation. Looks like what's going to happen in terms of the state regulation moving into later this summer is a pretty aggressive mandate for the district to reduce water loss. Our current target is 68% of current water loss has to be reduced by 2028. We did include this unfunded mandate as a consideration in our budget and rates moving forward, but staff will continue to bring plans moving forward how we'll either meet compliance or work with the state in adjusting what that target is. So not an easy task moving forward. It's quite a heavy lift. I imagine Mr. Poncelet will be spending some time with the state and our JPA advocates, and staff will be working on water loss reduction as a major initiative internally. And then finally, on the power side, Just wanted to make the board aware. It's kind of a good note of how important the diversity of our purchase power market portfolio is. We had some brief topics in open session previously about what happened in Texas in terms of the extreme winter and the outages in generation. And, there's not a direct connection with our power grid and theirs, but there are some kind of reciprocal or some impacts that we feel in terms of our market purchases. So in the month of February, for example, there was unseasonably low wind generation, perfectly timed or imperfectly timed with the Texas outages and some of the demands on natural gas generation caused an increase in the market prices. And so you can see that something that seems disconnected from our region does have an overall impact. And so overall market purchase for us in Truckee here was about $160,000 more than our average for February. And so it's a good reminder that how important the work that our electric utility division does in a diverse market portfolio there. So great work on it. It's also why we make sure we fund some of those rate resiliency funds to make sure that we can keep stabilization there. But also a great reminder. So that's all I have.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Brian Wright, for all of those
Can I ask a quick follow-up question?
Sure.
On the water usage, does the district still do the water notifications if there is an unusually high amount of water usage?
Yes, we do. And with the caveat there is that it's dependent on that we have communication with that meter at that moment. And so if there's a meter communication outage, the meter still continues to work, but the homeowner or resident may not get that notification immediately until the district reestablishes communication with it.
Okay, great. Thank you. So that moves us on to item number 8, which is a little bit of special business. And this is a General Manager Succession Transition Ad Hoc Committee update. Is that being presented to us? Or is that me? Okay. Oh.
I think that's one of us.
That's one of us. I think I can give just a quick update. Obviously, we all attended our meeting on Thursday to choose our finalists to interview. I just want everybody to know that we are looking right now at our interview questions, and we will make sure that we refine those. We will distribute them to all of the board members to get your familiarity with them and any feedback. And that will be happening probably within the next week or so. So I think that is where we stand at the moment. Director Bender, do you have anything that you think is pertinent to add to that?
I think the only thing you and I will probably just have an ad hoc meeting with our ad hoc committee meeting on Monday, the 19th, I'm thinking. You're muted.
I'm muted. There we go. That is the tentative plan. That time has not been set on yet because I have not yet responded. I'm not sure. I might have to jimmy that a little bit. So, but we are planning to have that meeting. We are planning to go over those questions. We are planning to release them to the board and get feedback on those. And then, of course, we will be training. Okay, that concludes my updates on special business. I see Mr. Salmon, you appeared and are unmuted. Did you have a? No, okay, very good.
Preparing for the next.
Signs of something, but that's all good. So item number 9. Oh, that's why, because you have the next item. This is a public hearing. So we are now going to open a public hearing related to the adoption of District Resolutions 2021-08, 2021-09, 2021-10, and 2021-11 for our annual electric and water standby charges. So to open up this hearing, and I'm going to hand the baton to Mr. Salmon, who is going to give us information.
Before we start, President Finn, in terms of procedural, maybe ask for direct Council Gross's input on this. Shall we open the public hearing at the board's pleasure now, or wait till the recommendation at the end?
Yeah.
It is done all different ways. Sometimes public comment or the public hearing is only opened for the public comment portion, but I think it's fine to open it now as President Finn has. Then we have the complete presentation, questions and answers as part of that public record. Public comment is part of that public record, and then we can close the public hearing portion prior to board deliberation and action.
Very good. That's how I was hoping it would unfold. Okay, very good.
All right. Will I get rolling then?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you, President Finn, members of the board. This public hearing item number 9 is the consideration adoption of annual electric and water standby charges. Each year, the board is required to adopt resolutions continuing electric and water standby charges. The resolutions also authorize Nevada and Placer counties to collect the charges on the annual property tax bills. Standby charges have been assessed on vacant parcels since 1975 at the district, within the district. They recruit the district's operating and maintenance costs and investment in water and electric facilities. From parcel owners, the standby fees are from parcel owners who benefit from the vacant lot being in close proximity to our distribution facilities of water and electric. The electric standby charge is $20 per year for each parcel 1 acre or larger, and $10 per year for parcels less than 1 acre. The water standby charge is $80 per parcel per year, regardless of the size of the parcel. This is a visualization map of areas that have shaded blue, water only, red are electric only, and green are water and electric standby charge eligible parcels. So these are vacant lots that we have infrastructure going by them. A public hearing was advertised in the Truckee Sierra Sun or Truckee Sun newspaper on March 19th and 26th of 2021, as well as it was noticed during the March 3rd board meeting that this was going to occur today. The district standby rates have not changed in many years. There's no changes proposed at this time. The water standby charge does not apply to vacant parcels in Donner Lake and the Gunter service areas. As far as fiscal impact goes, it's a total of about $133,000. Once this is approved, we dial in the specific, update the specific by parcel information from GIS data and submit that information to Placer County and Nevada County as applicable. This is an annually budgeted item. So the recommendation is to conduct a public hearing to accept comments on establishing and continuing the electric and water standby rates and adopt resolutions 2021-8 through 2021-11 as indicated on the screen. That's what I have.
Thank you very much. Do we have any public item on this, or excuse me, public comment on this item? See. I don't see anything on the chat or the Q&A, so has anything come to you?
No, Madam President.
Okay. Do we have any director comments on this item?
Yeah, Chris, I have
Yes.
a comment as well. This is very routine, but this is a reminder for me to ask the question again, or perhaps this is somewhat related to what we're approving here based on the method that we're collecting the revenue, and perhaps talking about in the future if collecting revenue through the county's tax roll is an option for us to pursue, non-payment. And the reason I bring this up in Tahoe City, all non-payments go to county lien every 6 months. So we very rarely do we ever write off accounts, or do we ever shut off accounts for non-payment because it goes directly to lien. So this just may be a recommendation to staff as we continue down the road of evaluating our past due accounts. A quick evaluation of perhaps different methods to mitigate that in the future would be something to bring back to the board. But just brought to mind the fact that we do have a relationship with the counties, and we do benefit from them, putting our fees on their tax roll and then reimbursing us.
Thank you, Director Laliotis. That's something I had not thought about. Very interesting. Thank you. Do we have any other director comments at this time?
Good idea. So that's it. Good idea, Tony. Thanks.
And I'm happy to move staff's recommendation.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Very good. Shauna, could we get a roll call vote, please?
Director Aguirre,
Yes.
Director Bender,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis,
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very
And President Finn, it would be appropriate to close the public hearing.
And I will now close the public hearing. Very good. Thank you all very much. Moving on to the consent calendar. Do we have any public comment on the consent calendar at this time? I don't see any in the question and answer or the chat.
No, Madam President.
Thank you. Shauna, do any directors have any questions or need to pull anything from the consent? Okay, in which case, do we have a motion?
I'll move the consent calendar tonight.
Thank
There's
you.
that one change.
Yes, there was one change that Brian made us aware of, correct. I'm still willing to approve it. Do we have a second?
Second.
Very good. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Yes, thank you. Director Aguirre,
Yes.
Director Bender,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis,
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. We're moving right along with this densely packed meeting. Moving on to our action items. Item number 15. We're going to listen to a presentation, award of the district pipeline replacement 2021 construction contract. And so with that, actually, I'll go ahead and ask for public comment first. Do we have any public comment on this item? No? Yes? I see Steve going, wait a minute, did I just do that out of order? I got super excited about it.
That's okay. If there's a staff report, you might want to go ahead and have the staff report and then call for public comment and then move on. That's okay.
It helps to have more information in these situations, doesn't it? So let's go to the presentation that I am certain will be in front of us.
Good evening, President Finn. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So yes, this is action item number 15. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, please. Can everyone see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So again, this is action item number 15, award of the district pipeline replacement 2021 construction contract. So as I'm sure the board is aware, the water department has an ongoing need to replace existing pipelines that are fall into two categories, one of which are pipes that are in poor condition and require repeated repairs. And the second is pipes that are old, undersized, and have exceeded their useful life. So the pipeline replacement project for 2021 includes a total of about 3,750 feet of water main at 3 locations in the Tahoe Donner area. Northwoods Boulevard, south of the golf course driving range. Mulebach Way and Falcon Point Place, and Snow Peak Way and Matterhorn Place. And so those are outlined here on the map. You can see those 3 segments shown in red. So the bid opening for this project was held on May 25th. We received 7 bids. They are outlined here in this table. You can see they ranged from about 1.1 million for our low bidder to just over 1.5 million at the other end. Now, in addition to the construction contract, there are 3 related contracts that will be involved with this project. We have a construction inspection from CME, which the board just approved within the consent calendar. We have some environmental services. We're planning to use Inland Ecosystems, and that's estimated at about $3,000. And then we have geotechnical testing, which was also included on the consent calendar this evening, and we're estimating that at about $30,000. So our low bid was from Rapid Construction, and that was a price of $1,123,321.10. We are recommending a 10% change order allowance, so we're requesting a total authorization of $1,236,000. This is a rate-funded capital water project. Now, if we go back to the fiscal year 2021 budget that was adopted in 2019, there was a water capital budget of just over $2 million. But we did not identify a pipeline replacement project for 2021 in that budget. That budget, however, was based on an assumed annual water rate increase of 3% for 2021. Now, last year in 2020, the board was presented with and approved our 10-year water capital infrastructure replacement study, and that did include a pipeline replacement project for 2021. And if the board recalls, we also had a recently approved water rate schedule that included an annual rate increases of approximately 9% for the next few years. So the water capital expenditures for 2021 are currently forecast at just over 1.3 million, or excuse me, 3.1 million. And that's a variance of just over 1 million from our budget. So in terms of the additional funding necessary to cover this shortfall, we're proposing 3 sources. First of which would be approximately $770,000 from the 2021 rate increase, and this reflects the 9% that was actually approved by the board instead of the 3% that was budgeted. We are also anticipating about $200,000 in savings on our SCADA and facility metering projects from what was originally budgeted. And we're proposing that the difference of approximately $121,000 would be funded from operating reserves. So the recommendation before you this evening is to award the district pipeline replacement 2021 project to Rapid Construction and authorize the interim general manager to execute a construction contract in the amount of $1,123,321.10, plus a 10% change order allowance of $112,678.90, for a total amount not to exceed $1,236,000. And I'm available for any questions the board may have.
Very good. Thank you so much, Mr. Kaufman, for that clear and concise presentation. Do we have any public comment at this time?
No, Madam President.
Thank you. Then I will open it up for directors to comment on and discuss. I can't see.
Neil, where is this contractor located? Is he here?
They're based out of Carson City.
Oh, okay, good. You're close.
I've got a question. So looking at the funding sources, I understand the 770 from the rate increase. The $200,000 in savings from the SCADA metering, what's the savings from?
Just as I indicated, we prepared the 2021 budget back in 2019. And as we look at the work that we're anticipating on accomplishing this summer, we believe that the amount of work we're actually going to perform is going to cost about $200,000 less than what was originally budgeted.
For the SCADA system?
The two projects together, those are two separate projects.
Okay.
One is SCADA and the other is facility metering.
Okay, thank you.
I can't see all of the directors at this time, so you're going to have to pipe up instead of giving me a thumbs up, just because I can't see you.
No comments from Director Bender. It all looks good. Thanks, Neil. So ready to move.
Director Bender, Director Laliotis, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I just want to recognize, sorry, my dog is also excited about spending money on water. No, I just want to recognize Neil and his crew for putting this together. It's good to continue our work up in Tahoe Donner. And I just do want to point out that this equates to about $300 a foot for water pipe, which is about $1.5 million a mile. So as we can see, our water pipeline costs continue to increase year after year. Not too long ago, they were about $1 million a mile. So, and I know that that the industry right now is experiencing significant cost increases for materials such as PVC pipe, et cetera. So hopefully we've got a decent price in getting in under that huge price increase. That's already here and continues to manifest itself. So thanks to the staff for putting this together.
Thank you, Director Laliotis. Yeah, things do just keep getting more expensive, don't they? I'm just hoping that these projects will help us with what General Manager Wright was talking about earlier about the mandates coming down from the state to help us reduce our leakage. So hopefully there's some parallel benefits, of course, to keeping our system reliable and functioning. So with that, I think I'm going to close director comment and call for a motion.
I move to award the district pipeline replacement 2021 project to Rapid Construction and authorize the interim general manager to execute a construction contract in the amount of $1,123,321.10, plus a 10% change order allowance of $112,678.90 for a total amount not to exceed $1,236,000.
I'll second.
Thank you. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Yes, thank you. Director Aguirre.
Yes.
Director Bender.
Yes.
Director Harris.
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
Thanks, Neil.
Very good, thank you. On to item number 16. This is a report of our budget performance for 2020 year end, which includes significant variances that have been identified. And I believe we are going to enjoy a presentation from Mr. Salmon again.
Thank you, President Finn and directors of the board. Good evening. As Neil actually mentioned, the fiscal year 20 and 21 budget was adopted November 6, 2019. District code requires a semi-annual review. This is the second of 4 that we'll do for the 2020-2021 cycle. The district code also has another paragraph right after that that says accompanying this report is a description of significant variances. So I'm trying to address those items as well. You know, I like to start things off for viewers because I'm sure there's a lot of public attendance and public viewership as well, just to give refresh everyone with a perspective on the district-wide size of the entity, the size of the district. Now 93 years young, 46 square miles of territory, 184 million in total assets. 63 million in net position, 48 million annual budget, 73 employees, and 5 board members. We'll go over all of these in the interest of time, but just a perspective on the size and scope of our electric and water utilities. That's over 1 billion gallons of water and a lot of electricity. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we just received an RP3 award, Diamond level. Congratulations to Joe and the electric team on that.
Thank you. Joe.
So another thing I like to do is kind of put a framework around what the budget looks like. This is the source of funds for the 2020 budget. The top line is the various sources of electric and water combined. The middle bar is water utility. The bottom bar is the electric utility. This is the sources of funds that come from various places. Some of our sources of funds are reserves in the 2020 budget. Some is operating revenues, the majority. We also receive Donner Lake Assessment District funds as well. Moving on to the use of funds, the top bar again is electric and water combined. The water utility in the middle and electric utility at the bottom there. You can see the blue bar at the bottom, the solid blue bar in the dead center, 41% for electric. That's your purchase power portion of the use of funds for 2020. Breaking down the operation and maintenance cost on the previous screen, the green section here, breaking that down, this is the various departments that feed into those both from expenses and payroll cost and vendor expenses. So moving on to electric, I'm going to cover electric first and then water and then some more global things for the district, as well as capital expenditures. So this is the top level summary of electric performance to budget. On the first number column, you have the electric budget that was approved for 2020 by the board in fall of 2019. And you can see that on the right, and the next column over is the actual amounts, and then the variance is the green and red numbers and percentages, the variance amount and the variance percentages. So revenues for electric were 1.1 million or 4% greater than budget. and I'm going to jump to the next screen to talk about that for a second. The favorable variance was driven by residential up 6% to budget due to energy demand. Despite a slight dip in April, May, and June when the pandemic kicked in, it doubled down and was significantly higher for the rest of the remainder of the year. And that was driven by the ripple effect of pandemic onto the community, as well as just second homes being used more, as well as the primary driver was the pandemic and second homes being used more, as well as primary residents being in their homes and using electricity more. Commercial was down slightly. We also had a large increase in JPA point pole contact revenues, and that was we had an increased level of pole replacement, JPA pole activity in 2020. One of the major projects was up on Northwoods between Chamonix and Muehlebach. And then we also did some catch-up billing for activity of pole replacement in 2019 that had not been submitted to the JPA third-party administrator. That's the breakdown on revenues. I'll next talk about expenses, and then I'll get into capital expenditures. It's important to point out on this page, and then we'll have see. So right here, you see, to the extent we did not have capital expenditures in 2020 at the budgeted level of almost 6.8 million, that in essence, that money is still in the bank, saved in reserves for, because a lot of those projects just did not happen. They will still happen. They just didn't happen in 2020. So it moves over to reserves. The net balance for the electric from a budget approved standpoint was a favorable 2.1 million compared to a zero budget that was approved. Got a circle on there. Sorry about that. So one of the, as I pointed out earlier, one of the larger expense categories for the electric utility, of course, is purchase power. It came in at 11.3 million, and it was 1.5 or 12% favorable to budget. We had about a 1% increase in megawatts purchased and a 13% favorable cost variance compared to budget. This includes absorbing about 150,000 in Stampede power costs, which was reallocated to the conservation budget to provide dollars for the COVID relief that was approved back in April. Joe's going to talk quite a bit about purchase power more at a separate agenda topic later this evening. All other expenses, excluding purchase power, were 11.7 million, which were unfavorable 5%. Vendor expenses were under budget, despite we did add 500,000. The board approved 500,000 more from the $1 million that was in the budget for wildfire mitigation efforts. The actual came in closer to 1.4 million in effort in 2020 in expenditures. Payroll direct was 3.5, so that's the gross payroll that was charged to operation and maintenance expense for the district and for the electric utility, and was slightly over budget, excluding turnover cost. And this was due primarily to the approved pay rate being greater than was the budget expectation, as well as an MOU bonus payment that was ratified, paid in 2020 when the MOU was ratified. This is just a quick visual of defensible space work that was done. In the green dots and green lines are areas that were touched in 2020, including 204 hazard trees, were service orders. 176 of those we took action. 13 of those took crane efforts. Some of this, excuse me, was unplanned areas that just were identified as we went into 2020 that were needed. My understanding from talking with the electric team is that some of the work was not done in part due to issues with a contractor, but for the most part, we accomplished the primary areas that were prioritized for 2020. Moving on to water, slight increase in revenues compared to budget, 200,000. Expenses were slightly over. Capital expenditures net were 90,000 less. We had 138,000 more in reserves, and the net cash flow was favorable to budget, $96,000. Revenue rounded was 2%. The actual number was 1.5, less rounding. Residential was up 1% in revenues, and commercial was up 5%. But it's only about 12% of our revenue mix on the commercial side. The rate increase for 2020 was similar to the budget expectation, around 3%. I mentioned expenses, 93,000 unfavorable, or 9.6 million. Vendor expenses were under budget about 2%. Payroll was slightly over budget, excluding turnover cost, again, due to the pay increases greater than budget expectation and the MOU ratification payment. Overhead ran a little bit under budget, driven by a variety of factors. There's so many moving parts to overhead, it would take me a couple hours to explain all of that. But that's where it netted out. And rent expense is another big component of water line item, and that was on budget. That's electric's charge of water, of rent to water. This is a summary of what I just went through for water and electric for a combined basis. I'm not going to go over this, but you could view it later or understand it. Pause it. I can share this presentation later if you'd like. Again, where the circle is, you can see that to the extent capital expenditures were less than budget, that those funds are still available. They're in the reserves accounts. The district as a whole was 2.1 million favorable to budget. Sorry, 2.2. So capital expenditures and how they were under budget. If you take yourself back in time, we had a pandemic starting in the first quarter of 2020, and no one in the world really knew what was going to happen. So there was a very conscious effort to pause expenses, particularly that could be managed. And so there was a conscious effort that was discussed with the board to pause non-critical capital expenditure projects. And only do those projects that were necessary and had to be done in 2020. So that's a big part of the reason why capital expenditures are less than what was budgeted in 2020. Conserve cash was a mantra across the world, and at least the business world, for the most part. There are certainly arguments to continue spending, and as the pandemic evolved, things have shifted and mindsets have shifted, but at the time, no one knew what was going to happen. These are capital expenditures for water. Significant variance here is the timing of the water MTUs. The majority of that work was done in previous years. Was done in previous years, as well as some in 2020, and then that project was completed in 2020 and capitalized. Moving on to debt for the district. These are the primary six debt components that are on the books for the district. The side fund is split 60-40 between electric and water. And then there are four debts for the water utility. And then there is a dark fiber loan that's almost paid off. Oftentimes, particularly with where interest rates are right now, refunding has been talked about, and we have looked, and I will get into this in a few minutes. Let's see, but specifically the large portion of debt, the 2015 COPs, water bonds, second section here, those aren't callable until after 10 years. So we've got a few years to wait before those would be callable and refundable without a large penalty that would negate the interest savings. This is the same information just in total by year, and just to visually show that in how electric debt ends in 2023, or 2022 is the last year, and then it drops for water. It starts dropping after 2021, and then it drops $1 million in 2022, and then levels out in 2023. We have a good debt coverage ratio. For 2020, it was 2.72 for water, and the COP bond requirement is 1.25. Anything over 1.6, I was just reading the S&P rating information that our bond advisors gave me. Anything over 1.6 is considered good. The reason why I mentioned that is we have a large capital improvement plan, as you're all aware of, that averages about $7 million a year going forward, and for 10 years. So that'll be a big part of our 2022-2023 budget discussions. The SRF loan had a maturity of a long-term investment, which is really paying off for the district. That was a very wise move. And I'm looking at it, I looked at it a few months ago, and I'll dust that off in the next month or so, but it looks like with our next payment this year, we could actually pay off the loan early, which would have us interest savings of about $200,000. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be financially a favorable net present value for us. And so I'll be presenting that to the board in the next few months, paying off the SRF loan a few years early. The other thing I have a couple of pages to talk about is the pension unfunded liability is now at 14 million, 75% funded. And the majority of that is driven by the classic side of the CalPERS pension program. The UAL payment continues to escalate. The last 5 years, or sorry, the last 4 years and the future year of 2022 are presented here, so it continues to ratchet up. And I get solicited about every 2 weeks from pension obligation bond advisors of various sorts and flavors that we should seriously be looking at some pension obligation bonds to basically refinance some of this unfunded liability. These are some other pension details. On the right is our net pension liability on the books. Back in 2014, it was 6.2 million. In 2019, 12.9, and it's now 14 million. Total pension liability is almost 58 million, less our financial fiduciary net position is net pension liability of 14 million. the as I mentioned, the growth, the UAL continues to grow pretty dramatically, and we're not alone. Everyone that's in the CalPERS Classic program is experiencing similar problems and issues. It's just how we go about dealing with it, or do we ignore it? One of the interesting stats that was shown to me was that about 55% of CalPERS benefits are funded by investment returns. And over the 5-year, 10-year, and 20-year, and 30-year return rates are shown here. And the discount rate that they're used is 7%, and we could borrow at around, but somewhere between 4 and 4.5%. And essentially, that's us being able to save money instead of the CalPERS charging us 7%. So there's a real present value savings of cash flow over the next 15 to 20 years if we tackle some of this UAL liability via pension obligation bonds. There's risk involved with that, and we'll certainly be vetting all of that and presenting that to the board. But it's definitely a common topic right now in the bond world for special districts, government agencies, et cetera. Moving on to Brian in the general manager's update provided some information on our past due amounts, and he mentioned 400,000, and that's the upper right bar, blue bar on the far left. Past due is currently 403,000. The 90 day is up to 90 days plus is up to $173,000, and at year end was 111. As of April 1st, end of last month, the 90 days, that 171,000 is comprised of 224 electric customers and 146 water customers. It's important to understand that the 30-day past due average per customer is 261. The 60 days is 269, and 90 days plus balance is 936,000. I believe at a previous board meeting, I had mentioned our allowance for bad debt. Last year at year end close, the balance allowance for bad debt was 13,000. We have very little bad debt. Now that we're in a pandemic world, we have 171,000 currently 90 days past due. It was 111,000 as of 12/31, which was our assessment for creating an allowance for bad debt. And the estimate that I've provided and calculated and has been presented to the auditors, and the auditors are good with it, is a current reserve of year-end reserve of 37,000. We have a COVID pandemic relief program for our customers that can show evidence of pandemic loss of income. And we have provided to date $99,000 in relief related to that program. The board approved in April up to $330,000. I would be remiss without mentioning that there are multiple active legislation bills at a federal and state level talking about some type of relief to utilities and utility customers for their past due amounts. Nothing has yet to materialize, but there is active conversation out there. At some point, something will happen. I plan to bring back to the board, I briefed the board on pandemic relief and the past due amounts a month or so ago, and I plan to bring that back to the board in May with additional information and further discussion. Moving on to another important element of our financials is reserves. On the left is electric, on the right is water. These are the key reserves. And I don't list on here restricted reserves such as a bond required reserve balance that just sits there till the bonds are paid off, those type of things. These are our working operating reserves, our designated reserves. And matching this up with district code, I do think that through the budget process this fall, we'll probably I'd like to entertain some refinement to the district code wording on their various reserves that are presented here. One of those things in particular is electric, and that's why this the goal of 11,964,000 is shaded red. The way that reserve wording in the district code lays out, it's 6 months of expenditures. And it seems like to me it should exclude purchase power because we have a rate reserve down below that is not, that is separate and distinct, specific for electricity purchase power volatility. And but the way it's worded, it's all expenses excluding depreciation expense. So I can't just make a change on that. So what I'm trying to point out is that goal of 11.9 million is awfully high, considering that includes purchase power expenditures, and you have a separate rate reserve. So I'd like to explore that a little bit. The other thing I'm seeing is we have in our general ledger, and there are books and records, a DSC operating reserve, and I believe it's a hangover from district code long ago, and so that's something that I'd like to entertain today, actually, with a transfer and close that out with a board authorized transfer of funds up to the general fund. Through the budget process, we'll also be readdressing our deferred liabilities reserve balances. Those targets are not defined in district code other than the board shall periodically set them. I am recommending 2 transfers today. I'll get to that in a minute in a little more detail, but it's moving on electric side, shoring up the rate reserve just a little bit. You can see that the rate reserve for electric is slightly under the goal, which is 50% of purchase power budget for the year. And so I don't think that goal, the balance in rate reserve has not been bolstered in a year or so, and our electricity costs have gone up. And so it's time to bolster that reserve a little bit. And we have the funds to do it. And then the second item I mentioned earlier was eliminating this DSC operating reserve and moving those funds in the general operating reserve. So I've mentioned matters related to 2020. I'd also think it's very important for the board to understand, we're in April now, things that we're seeing on the horizon for 2021 as compared to budget. Again, the 2021 budget was approved in fall of 2019, November of 2019. And the first and foremost thing, one of the bigger things is wildfire mitigation. The budget is 1 million and the forecasted need is 1.5 million. Consistent with 2020's amount that the board approved to continue to gain on that effort. Purchase power, very tricky number to forecast, particularly this early in the year, but a conservative forecast is there is some savings there. Right now, I'm forecasting 12.5 million, and that includes the hiccup due to Texas and the weather event in February in Texas that cost us about 160 grand ripple effect. Rate of pay changes. There was, as mentioned, rate of pay changes were approved greater than at the budget expectation level. Netting for 2021 is about a 2% variance, or 165,000. I do want to point out that the vacancies, current vacancies, particularly the water director with Brian serving as interim general manager, and the IT director variance will offset that overage in cost for rate of pay changes, as well as some other vacancies that are current and known that we're trying to fill as quickly as possible. So we have an offset there. Pension cost, don't know fully where that's going to flesh out until year end, but currently forecasting that to be about 400,000 over budget. As Neil mentioned earlier, there was a rate increase for 2021 that generates incremental funding that we need to use for our capital improvement plan for water. Employee housing, JPA, has a membership cost that's not budgeted. Investment income forecast close to 100,000 variance there, as everyone knows, and it's in your treasurer's report. Forget which page, but interest rates are very low, particularly with our LAIF and PCIF, Placer County and pool investments, and that's pretty much what we're in. So I'm going to go over the investment policy, and well as have a recommendation to engage with an investment broker so that we can get in some non-LAIF, non-PCIF type investments that are a little bit longer term and perhaps could get us 0.3% instead of 0.1%. I'm still wrestling with the town of Truckee fueling station and its cost and the investment there. That is not a budgeted item. Pandemic, I've mentioned previously, and we need to talk about that in May. There's a new regulatory requirement for a physical security plan, and potential personnel changes are always at play and in conversations, and what formulates and bubbles up earlier in the year versus toward the end of the year could have an impact on the 2021 financial performance. Capital expenditures on water. Neil just talked about the pipeline and how that was not in the 2021 approved budget. And we're adding that item. That's the forecasted variance there. And then electric, right now I'm forecasting 6.5, which is the budget, but there's still some need to do some additional forecasting, pencil sharpening for capital expenditures to dial that in for the year 2021. Almost to the end. This is a tentative timeline for the budget that's cycle that's coming up. We are essentially working on budget now, with in particular the strategic planning and getting the tools together and starting to have conversations with staff. Rubber meets the road. We start having workshops, which in the last cycle started, there was a first workshop in August. 4 years ago, it was, the first one was in September. A tentative draft here, not for opinion or excuse me, not for necessarily a decision today, but just a primer for the board to understand, think about how many workshops we want to have and when. We need to get those dates dialed in. Perhaps we could have that conversation at the May board meeting. So with that exhilarating presentation, I'd like to open it up for questions on stuff I went through. I can go back to a particular page and/or we can talk about these two transfers. I'd be remiss without mentioning that the audit has gone great. Big kudos to the accounting team, in particular, Melanie Reeves and Craig Beatty. It went very smoothly. They did their field work remotely, but we're here digitally every day for a week and a half. And we're in the throes of drafting financial statements now. At this time, there's been no adjustments proposed. And they will have, their miscellaneous findings consistent with last year for the most part. And we'll have that discussion as well. And so we're moving forward with that, and that's going well.
We've had the audit done, and it's finishing up now, huh?
It is. It's in review with the partners at the firm.
Oh, good.
While they're doing that, we're drafting the financial statements, all 68 pages, I believe.
Well, I think these transfers are more or less left to you. You know exactly what they have to be transferred. So I have no questions on them. And it's good to know that the audit was done, being done now. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Director Aguirre. Thank you very much, Mr. Salmon. That was a very detailed. I actually like budget reports when somebody is laying them out for me like that, where I don't have to figure it out myself. So I would like to open this up to public comment at this time. Is there any public comment on this action item?
No, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Shauna. And now I will open it up to director comments and questions. And again, I can't see everybody, so just pipe up for yourself here, directors.
Well, I said my
I've got a
comments.
couple of questions.
Go ahead.
And before we go on, Mike, if it's possible to get a copy of this presentation emailed, that would be great.
I'll do that.
Okay, I appreciate it. Kind of going through the staff report and listening to you, from what I understand, there's you said about 60 employees, so you have 14 positions that are unbudgeted, that are budgeted but not filled.
I don't think it's that many, Director Harris. There's 73 budgeted positions for 2021. What our current roster is, I do not have on the tip of my tongue. I know that, there's a vacancy in a GIS position and a general manager or water director or general manager position, I guess is, and the IT director position is vacant and the facility maintenance position is vacant.
And we actually just approved a safety incentive, and I want to say that was for 60 employees. Give or take a few. So we're maybe down we have about budgeted for, of the budgeted numbered staff members, there are 10 positions that potentially are just kind of vacant that had been budgeted for, but that just haven't been filled, or, for whatever reason, they're vacant.
Correct.
Okay.
If I might add, that the 60 was the number of staff that qualified for the incentive. So that's not the entire staff. If they're mid-year hires or different circumstances, but staff can bring back to the board an actual number of fully filled positions at the moment, and then the number of vacancies.
Oh, okay. That's different. The safety incentive, that's different. And my understanding of it was that anybody who worked one day during that time and they were paid for it. So yeah, that would be helpful to understand the number of employees that are currently there right now. And then also, yeah, thank you so much. This is definitely very complicated and there's a lot of pieces to it. So that's why a copy of the presentation will be helpful. But looking over it, I'm looking over the budget versus actual revenue expenditures, your attachment 1 and attachment 2 preliminary. And looking at those, the two areas where the budget or the actual exceeds the budget pretty significantly is in the general management by about $600,000. Am I reading that right?
I believe so.
Okay, and I know that one of them was due to a severance package. I'm assuming that, but that just seems like a significant spending for something that's not quite budgeted. So what other kind of elements would be included in this unbudgeted amount?
The wording I used was turnover cost, and that includes severance for the general manager that was termed.
Correct.
And there was also costs that were not budgeted for the prior GM when he left the district that were not budgeted.
Okay.
Those are the two primary drivers.
Okay. Would you say like 80% of that 600,000? What are the smaller amounts?
I'd have to go through the ledger.
Okay.
Yeah, but those are the two main things. They're at least 70% of it.
Okay. It just seems fairly large to have a $600,000 unbudgeted cost, but it, happens. Businesses, it happens to businesses. So thank you.
All from Director Harris. Do we have any other directors that would like to ask a question or comment?
I've got a comment. Mike, great report. Thanks for you and all the work from all your helpers. Just really good information looking at it on how you presented it. And I got two big things and just really applying what Tony mentioned earlier regarding the past due accounts. I really like that idea for leaning properties for the past due accounts. And then secondly, the pension liability, that's getting pretty nerve-wracking, that number. And it's just going up every year. I like how you've brought it up. We got to think about it and make a plan. And so I'm really interested in hearing about that in the future on how we can address that. And then there was a third thing, but I missed it and I can't remember. So I'm going to drop it at that. So thanks.
Thank you, Director Bender. Director Laliotis, have you got anything that you would like to comment on?
No, I think I don't recall. I apologize, Mike, if you cover this in any great detail, but I know the electric operating appeared to be about $1 million over in the operations category of the operating expense. Was there any big ticket items that may have contributed to that?
The wildfire mitigation came in about 1.4 million and budget was $1 million. Here. Director Harris mentioned one of the other key variances.
This was specifically the operations line item. Showed it about 980,000 higher than budget.
So that's going to be your rate of pay difference between what was budgeted and what was approved.
Okay.
A piece of that, and then 400,000 of that is payroll rate of pay change, And then there's burden on top of, included in that. So those two numbers would be your main two drivers.
And then is wildfire mitigation in that operations line item as well? Okay. Perfect. Thank you. That was my question.
Thank you, Director Laliotis. Director Aguera, I think I'm circling back to you. I think you had started this conversation.
Well, I want to thank Mike for putting all those pieces together. There's a lot of work in this report. And like I said, the figures, I'm going to leave up to him because I can't follow them all. That's for sure. None of us can. But I guess it looks pretty good to me. And thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Director Aguera. And I'm going to add my more along Director Bender's lines. I like your idea of looking at our investments. I've always felt that I understand that we are a very conservative entity and we are not going to be investing in any wild rides, but it seems the return is so tiny. Maybe we could move it up from minuscule to just tiny, by looking at what other opportunities that may be out there. Because a lot of people are making a lot of money, but we don't need to make.
For sure, I'm not talking about anything sophisticated. It's just, right now we're in pooled LAIF, state pooled funds and the Placer County funds, and there's some U.S. Treasuries and Fannie Mae's and things that names that you would know that could get us a little bit more than what we're dealing with now.
Yeah, I think that's well worth checking out.
Okay.
Again, being very conservative in nature, but nonetheless, 0.1% is significant at that level. So I'm good. Thank you very much. We'll close out director comments, which means that I am now looking for a motion.
Let's see, where is it?
For this presentation, for this.
I'll move staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Director Laliotis. Do we have a second?
Second, Joe.
Thank you, Director Aguera. Shauna, could we get a roll call vote, please?
Yes, thank you. Director Aguera?
Yes.
Director Bender?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis?
Yes.
President Finn?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And this brings us to agenda item number 17. This is going to be Sana Schlosser is going to present for us. Consideration of award for the Truckee Substation Improvements 2021 contract. Ms. Schlosser, we are ready for you.
Good evening, President Finn and members of the board. Give me a moment to share my screen. All right, can you see that okay?
Yes.
Great.
I do.
Yeah. Give me just a moment. Okay, so this is action item 17. This is a presentation in regards to consideration of awarding the Truckee Substation construction contract. So a little bit of history about this substation. This substation is located at 10209 East Kaiser Street, so it's just east of the main historic downtown. This substation was originally built in the 1960s, and it serves the downtown corridor, the hospital, the district office, and multiple residential neighborhoods. This is a key substation. It has the most feeders of any of our substations. And while over the years, many improvements have been made to this substation, including the replacement of most of the pieces of major equipment, we have identified the need for some improvements. And We previously conducted a workshop at the July 17th, 2019 meeting. And while I don't expect you to remember the details of that conversation, I will go ahead and give you a recap of the improvements that are being proposed as part of this project. So, as I mentioned, we did find some opportunities to improve this substation to address safety and reliability concerns. The first component of this project is the installation of a control house. This is currently our only substation that does not have a control house. The control house provides a sheltered environment for our controls and for our personnel, and it can greatly reduce our outage response time, and it's a very much more modern way of working with our equipment. And so we feel that that's really important. The second component of this project is the construction of an oil containment system. This substation is located just uphill of Trout Creek and in very close proximity. And this substation currently lacks oil containment for the transformers and regulators. Again, this is our only substation where those facilities have not yet been constructed. So we are proposing to install an oil containment system, and this need was also identified in our stormwater pollution prevention plan. And so this is a really important component of the project. The next component of the project is the installation of some ground grid improvements. During our work with our engineering consultant, Tri-Sage, they did some ground grid testing and found that the system doesn't perform quite as we would like it to. And the ground grid system is a really important component of our site and personnel safety. And it's a big part of our protection scheme as well. So those improvements, while we're not proposing huge ground grid improvements, it'll be a great improvement to how the site performs. The next portion is we're proposing to install a guardrail along East Kaiser Street. This substation sits directly downhill of East Kaiser, and in the recent years, this street has seen a dramatic increase in traffic as we have people going to Coburn Crossing, or we have people trying to bypass downtown. The positioning of the substation being downhill of a much busier street, we're concerned that if there was a vehicular accident in close proximity to the substation, a car could roll down the hill and end up in our substation, which obviously poses risk of injury or death for not only the occupants, but it could cause damage to our substation. So we have been working very closely with the town of Truckee in coordinating this work, and we have a plan that they are on board with to install a guardrail.
Good.
Now, the final component of this project is to install some drainage improvements and slope stabilization. The north side of this substation has a very steep upslope, and currently it shows some signs of significant erosion. And regularly we have rocks that roll down the hill and they come into the substation. So we want to shore that up and provide some additional protection for erosion. But the drainage improvements that we're proposing will address sheeting across the driveway. When we have runoff or melt, the water comes down the hill, it sheets across the driveway, and then, as you can imagine, that can freeze up overnight and turn portions of the driveway into a skating rink, and not in the way that we intend. So we're going to do some drainage improvements to help convey that water off of the substation. So, as I mentioned, we discussed this project in the summer of 2019. This work was originally planned to begin in 2019 and then complete in 2020. But it's been postponed several times due to some bidding and scheduling issues. And finally, last year it was postponed due to COVID-19 concerns. This was one of the projects that we decided wasn't critical and postponed it. So below this, we have a proposed schedule. The bid packages were released in late February and they advertised in the Sierra Sun in early March. We did conduct a bid opening on March 24th, and tonight we're proposing to award the contract. Hopefully the notice to proceed will go to the contractor in about a week or two. So I put April 15th down with the goal of starting substation construction with the substation offline in early May, substation project completion in late September with the substation back online well ahead of our winter peak loading season. And then we're proposing to have project closeout hopefully in November. So as I mentioned, we did open bids on March 24th. We did receive 4 bids. All 4 bids were responsive. And Mountain G Enterprises out of Folsom, California was the lowest responsive bidder with a bid of just under $900,000.
You got a Folsom?
Yes.
Did you say Folsom? Yeah.
So now as far as the fiscal impact goes, this project was included in the fiscal year 20 and 21 budgets. And the total approved budget amount for those 2 years was just over $1 million. So we took a look at how much we've spent on this project to date. The total expenditures are just under $440,000. This includes engineering time, consultant time, and then it does include the purchase of the control house. We did purchase the control house and take receipt of that in 2020. And that's a pretty substantial portion of that expense. We are predicting that the funds needed to complete the project will be just over $1 million. So we budgeted $1 million. We're forecasting that the total project cost is going to be about $1.5 million. This is 44% greater than we originally anticipated, but this is due largely to inflationary pressures and of the current construction market, particularly here in Truckee. So this is a facilities fees project. This project was identified in our master plan, and that will be our primary funding source. As of the end of fiscal year 20, we did have just over $750,000 in our facilities fee fund. But again, we're projecting that the remaining expenses for this project are just over $1 million. And so we do have a forecast facilities fee shortfall of about $311,000. Now, we do anticipate that we will be collecting facilities fees in 2021, but we really don't have a good estimate for what those fees will be. We will use those as the primary funding source, but we still are expecting ultimately a shortfall in the facilities fees funds. As a secondary funding source, we're proposing to use funds from the Electric General Fund, which comes from rates. And as of the end of fiscal year 20, the balance in this fund was quite healthy it was right around $11.4 million. And so we do have sufficient funds to perform this work. And
I was going to say, we do have a Mike Solomon. He can transfer funds for us. But go ahead, I'm sorry. That's good news.
yes, Mike was very helpful in developing the fiscal impact statement. At this time, it's staff's recommendation to authorize the interim general manager to execute a contract with Mountain G Enterprises for the Truckee Substation Improvements 2021 contract in an amount of $898,580 plus a 10% change order authorization for a total not to exceed contract amount of $988,500. And at this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much for explaining to us the substation and what we need to do. I would like to open this up to public comment. First, do we have any public comment on this action item tonight?
No, Madam President.
Thank you. And I will now open it up to directors. And I think I'm going to call names out one by one and we can just comment or not. So Director Aguirre, do you have any comments this evening?
Sean, I was going to ask you, is there enough room up there for a control house? Or is the control house, I'm thinking, might be a little thing?
That is an excellent question, Director Aguera. We do have sufficient space for a control house. What we're going to do is it will actually be on the eastern side of the substation. I don't know if you've been by there. There is currently a tough shed, and the control house will be taking the place of the control shed, but it's, or a tough shed, excuse me. But it is slightly larger, so we will be rebuilding the fence slightly east of the current location.
Well, it going kind of in a roadway, won't it? If it goes that way?
Yeah. It will not be in the roadway. It will be south of our driveway.
Oh, okay. Oh,
But that's an-
south of the driveway. Oh, okay. But I thought maybe it'd be inside the gate there and then would stick out the gate. So
Yeah.
I see where you're gonna put it. If there's a space there on the south side of the property, there's room for a control house there.
Yes, and it will be inside the fence perimeter and behind the gate.
Okay, good, good. And that's all the only question I had so far. The other ones you answered.
Thank you, Director. Director Bender, do you have any questions?
Just a comment, nice presentation, pretty straightforward, good with the overage, healthy reserves to grab that and cover that. So looks like it'll be a much needed and great project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bender. Director Harris, do you have any questions or?
Yeah, thank you so much, Shauna, Sana. I'm happy that to see that there's going to be a guardrail going above that, because I think a lot more people are using that street for just cruising through downtown and trying to get through downtown in a faster manner. Hopefully stopping by Poorhouse on the way. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Harris. Director Laliotis, do you have any questions or comments for Sana?
No, just thank you. And, I appreciate the detailed presentation on the values of this project. Checks off a lot of boxes and a lot of safety boxes. So definitely makes the expenditure of some reserve funds more palatable based on the value of this project. So thank you.
Thank you.
There's lots of thanking. Thank you, Director Laliotis. And I'm just going to essentially echo Director Harris. A guardrail there will be a great addition. That is a narrow road. There's a lot of people on it. You're right. I drive that road daily, pretty much. And I know the Smarts have had more than one vehicle end up in their homes there. So, yeah, exactly. It's a very scary when it does happen. So we've been, let's put up a guardrail and all of the other safety improvements and reliability improvements. So thank you very much. At this time, I will close director comment and ask for a motion.
I'll move staff's recommendation.
Thank you.
I second.
Thank you, Director Harris. Shauna, can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. Director Aguera,
Yes.
Director Bender,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis,
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, which brings us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sana. Okay. That brings us to item 19, which is approval of the treasurer's report for March and April of 2021. Do we have any public comment on the treasurer's report?
Did we skip 18?
Yeah, we have
Did I skip?
item number 18.
Uh-oh. It is quite possible that I did. And I did. Let me see. Let me go back to the beginning because it's not in my packet. Let's see.
This is the presentation, the staff report from the agenda, the original agenda. It was added, I think, on Monday night.
Gotcha. So it's the purchase capital review for fiscal year 2020. And I think we have Mr. to present this for us. I apologize.
Oh,
Yeah,
no
we
worries.
can't miss our meatloaf presentation.
Yes, I think I have a new name for it tonight. Stay tuned. Bait with bated breath. Well, good evening, President Finn and members of the board. This is workshop item number 18, purchase power plan budget versus actuals review for fiscal year 20. Before I begin, I just want to mention that I thought I had the longest presentation back in February with 25 slides, but I think the new king is Mike Salmon with 35 slides on his presentation. So hats off to you, and you are the new champion, Mike. You have the baton.
I will work on that for the next one. Thank you, Joe.
All right. Well, let me share my screen and I'll get us going tonight. I'll try to move through this as quickly as I can. It is a long presentation, but not too long. What I'd like to do, please feel free to stop me at any time and ask questions. So, well, included within the fiscal year 20 and 21 budget was, of course, the purchase power plan. This plan was approved by the board. As Mike mentioned, the budget was approved back in November of 2019. And it included the following purchase power plan, included the following principles and items. Of course, everything begins with our mission statement to provide reliable and high quality electric service in a safe, open, and responsible manner. The plan also includes meeting the RPS targets. Of course, this is a state requirement. Conservation, of course, is a first resource. This will continue to offset growth. The plan also included the California Air Resources Board cap and trade program. And of course, our energy portfolio is diversified. Diversification allows us to spread risks associated with electrical generation across a variety of resources. It included future renewable resources and proposed purchase power cost as part of the plan. And of course, we have a historic way of referring to all these items that I just mentioned, and that is our beloved three-legged stool of rates, renewables, and reliability. And we need to balance all three. So how did we do? Well, Mike took my thunder away. We are under budget for purchase power by about 1.5 million or 12% for fiscal year 20. Energy consumption we had an increase to budget. We budgeted a little over or a little less than 167 or 68,000 megawatt hours. And our actual was just a little over 169,000 megawatt hours, or a 1% increase. Some of the drivers that made the price or the total energy cost be under budget was the fact that the district is a winter peaking utility. So when we're out looking for power, sometimes when our loads are greater than resources, we can access the market at lower rates compared to people, most of the rest of the West that is summer peaking. In addition,